Hi, welcome back to the Explore YouTube channel. So in this video, we are going to continue with the arrays. So these are the few topics which we are going to cover: how we declare a 1D and 2D array, right? And then how we are going to pass that array to functions, right? Java functions, and how we will be able to access the array elements, right? So let's get started without any wait. Now, how do I declare a 1D and 2D array? I hope so. You have watched the previous explanation in which I have explained what a 1D and 2D array is. Now let's look at how we can kind of declare it in a program, right? Now, the very easiest way to declare a Java array is probably just knowing the name of the array which you are going to use. So probably your name of the array could be simply marks, right? So this is the name of your array, and then you need to know how many elements you want to have in the array. Let's say you want to have, let's say, 5 elements in the array, and this is the basic information you need just to create a simple array. So let's take a look at it. Now here I have a very simple Java program. Now in this case, let's say I'm going to comment it out, so I'll write it that okay, we are going to create a simple 1D array, correct? So let's say my array name is marks. So this is how you declare. So let's say your marks is going to be all integers, right? So you can say int marks followed by a simple bracket, right? And then which is equivalent to integer of, probably you can say, new int. And then in this case, you will be having the size of the array, right? Now let's say you want to store 5 marks, right? So how do you write it? You just simply say 5. It's this simple, right? Now in this case, I want to initialize my array as well. So what this has done is it has created an array marks of size 5. Now I want to initialize this array with some values, right? So I can even say something like marks of let's say 0. The first marks is 15, right? And let's say my second marks, which is going to be marks of 1, right? It's going to be 17, and then so on, right? So this will go on, right? This will go on. So in this case, what I'm saying is that, okay, in my marks array, at the 0th index, have the value 15. In my marks, at the first index, have the value 17, and then so on, right? But what if you write something like this? Marks of, let's say, 1 is equivalent to 20. What will this be? Will this be a problematic thing? No, it won't be. So initially, what will happen is, at the 0th index, the value will be 15. At the first index, the value will be 17. But again, I am saying that, okay, hey, at the first index, place the value 20. So will this be a problem? No, this won't be a problem. Then what will this do? This will simply replace 17 with 20. It's that simple. So don't get confused with this. Now I can even have, let's say, okay, by the way, what will be the last index in marks? Will it be 5? No. Again, I've explained this in the very last video itself. The very last index will be the length of the array minus 1, which is marks of 4. Let's say the last value is 51. And then so on, this can continue. So this is how you simply create a very simple 1D array, right? I hope you get the entire point. Now, what if I want to declare a 2D array? How do I actually do that? So what I'll do is I'll quickly get rid of this, or I can probably comment this out. Yeah, that looks good to me. So I'm going to write something like this. I'll create a simple 2D array. So how will we be able to do this? Well, it's quite simple. Let's say I have my marks right here. I have my marks right here. I'll just simply paste this. You might be like, hey, this is 1D array. Yeah, this is 1D array. For it to be a 2D array, right? You see one difference. This is 1D array. We have one bracket. It's a very simple thing, right? If you have a 2D array, then we have 2 brackets. That's it. It's very simple, right? Now, you see the point that, okay, in this case, we have 5, and then we have one more bracket. What will this denote here? What will this denote? Let's have a quick look at it. So what if I say my 2D array was a matrix which looks something like this? Right? So how many rows does this have? The number of rows in here I can see is 3. That's first, second, and third. How many columns does this have? This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 columns, right? 3 and 4. So this is 3 is the number of rows, 4 is the number of columns. What will I say? That the very first value in here, will denote the number of rows, and the second value will be the number of columns. I hope you get my point. So in this case, will this be 5? Will this be 5? No, this will be 3 and 4. This will be 3 and 4. I hope you get my point, right? So this will internally create some data structure which looks something like this, and it's currently empty, right? It's currently empty as well. We don't have any values initialized, right? So this is what my marks would look like. Yes, this marks is now a 2D array. Yes, this marks is now a 2D array. 3 and 4. So 3 rows, 1, 2, 3, and 4 columns. 1, 2, 3, 4. I hope you get my point. Okay. Okay. Now let's quickly look at how we can kind of pass the array to a particular function, right? How do we do that? Well, it's very, very simple. Let's say I want to pass in array marks, right? I want to pass the array marks, which is a 1D array, right? So let's create a very basic function right here. So let's say my function name is public static void. It could be pass array function, right? Pass array. And I can even have some declaration here, which I will denote right now. By the way, a very quick recap here. So what does this void states? That the function has no return type. Please remember this. What if this was integer? Then the return type of this function is integer. This function is going to return a data type which is of integer, right? I hope you get my point. So if this is void, this means it's going to do nothing, right? I mean, it's going to perform some operations, right? But it's never going to return anything. That's the meaning of void, correct? Okay. Now let's say I write something like pass array. And then how do I pass this marks array? Is there any complexity here? No. You just simply write marks. Yes, you don't even need to worry about passing in the length of the array here. Yeah, you don't even need to do that. You just simply say pass array and marks. Now, what will this receive here? What will this receive here? We have to have something here, right, to receive this, right? So what will I write here? I'll write that, okay, hey, I am going to expect an array of type integer. And what's the name of the array? It's marks, right? And then I can simply have 1D representation here, because I need to know that, hey, the array which I'm passing here, is it 1D or is it 2D? I just simply need to know that as well. So I know this is a 1D array, hence I'll be having this once. What if I was passing this? I'll be having this twice. I hope you get my point. Now, in this case, instead of having something like marks here, what if I write something like an array here? Will this work? Yes, definitely this will work, because this marks is not depending on whatever the name of this is, right? Because I can even have something like XYZ here. It's going to be completely fine, right? So in this case, it's array and it's going to completely work fine. So what I'll do is, as a part of the next step, I can simply say that, okay, I will print the values. I will print the values in the 1D array. Yeah, I'll do that. But before I do that, I will tell you how to pass in a 2D array. Okay, so this is pass array. I can simply say 1D, correct? So I'll probably update this as well. Now let's say for this one, I am going to change the name as array, because this marks and this marks might collide. So it's better to change the name here. Now I can have one more function like pass array, but again, this is a 2D array and we have the array name as array, right? Now, where will I have this function? Well, I can have it created right here. So public static void pass array, and then we have 2D, right? And then we'll be having int, let's say my array name, but how many brackets do we will we be having here? We'll be having 2 of them, because I'm passing 2D array. I hope you get my point. Now what I'll do is I'll say that, okay, print the values of, or values in the 2D, let's be consistent here, array, right? Now this kind of brings us to the point, how to access, yes, how do we access the array elements? Well, to access the array element, right, it's very simple. To access the array element, firstly you need to know the length of the array. It's very simple, right? You need to be knowing the length of the array. Now, how do you know the length of the array? Well, we have an inbuilt function. What you can say is, let's say your array name is array itself. Then how do you know the length of this? Well, the length of this can be said as array dot length. It's that simple, array dot length. Please remember this. This is going to be very important for your own learning purpose and with respect to interviews as well. So what I'll do is, if I want to print the values in the 1D array, well, I can simply say I'll be using a for loop. Yes, I'll be using a for loop. I hope you know what a for loop is. For loop, while loop, kind of the same, but again, you can be having in while loop you'll be having while and do while, right? But in for, it's simply for loop. So we'll be using for loop. Yes, we'll be using for loop. So what I'll say is that, okay, for int I, is equal to 0. So what is this I here? This I is nothing but the index. Yes, I am going to access the values in the array with the help of indexing. So firstly, I'll be at the 0th index. Then I'll go to the first index, second index, third index, and then so on until the very end of the array. So I can even name this as, let's say, index, right? So int index is equal to 0. This is the initial value. I will say my index is going to be less than the length of the array. So in this case, the length of the array is array dot length. And then I can probably say that, okay, I'll increase the index by 1 every time. So index plus plus works fine. Or you can even have index is equivalent to index plus 1. Or you can even have index plus equivalent to 1. All works fine. So I can simply say index plus plus. Also, this is nothing but a post increment operator. It's better to know this. Okay, great. I'm gonna do this now. How will I be able to print the value? Well, I can simply use the statement system.out.print. That's absolutely fine. Or you can even use println. Now, what's the difference between print and println? Let's do a quick recap. So print is going to print in a single line, but println, after it prints, it goes to the next line. I hope you get my point. So let's say we are going to go for println, right? In this case, I'll simply say array of, let's say, index, and that should be it. Now, what if my array looked something like this? What if my array looked something like this? Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? So in this case, I know that, okay, my array has, let's say in this case, we have 5 elements. So I have 5 elements here as well. Now, if this is what the array looks like, then how will this be printed? 1 will be printed first, which is at the 0th index. Index will go forward. So index is now at the first index. Now at the first index, what's the value? It's 2. So 2 will be printed and then so on. So it's println, right? So how will this be printed? Well, this will be printed as follows. Let me quickly do a multi-line comment here. Yeah, that looks good. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This is how it will be printed. With respect to the passing the array in 2D mode, right? How will I be able to do it? It's very simple. Now you see the point here is that, okay, if it's a matrix, right? If it's a matrix, then you have to access this row of values, then this row of values, then this row of values. So how many are you accessing these many values? You are accessing them 3 times. And then for each time, yeah, 3 times. And then for each time, this is the first time, second time, third time. For each time you are accessing 1, 2, 3, 4 values. So what does that give away? What does that give away? That kind of gives away that for each row value, I have to access all the column values. Now, how do I know how many number of rows do we have? Well, we say the number of rows here is array dot length. It's that simple, array dot length. Now, array dot length. So let's say this was array, right? This was array. So something like an array dot length is going to give me the value 3. That's 1, 2, 3. 3 number of rows. But what if I want the number of columns? Well, it's very simple. You say array of 0 dot length. Yes, this is what you'll say. Array of 0 is what? This value. And how many values are there? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So what's the length? 4. So this is going to give me 4. So I know firstly I'll loop for each row, and then for each row I'll be having all the values in particular column. So I can even say something like int columns is going to be array of 0 dot length. Please be aware of this. Now I can say for int, let's say I can have a value I is equivalent to 0, and then I is going to go till rows, and then I'll increase I. For int j is equivalent to 0, and then j is going to go till rows or columns. It's going to be till columns, and then j plus plus. Now how do I print the value? It's very, very simple and trivial. System.out. Let's say print. What I can say is I can print the value as follows. So I can say array of, what will I write here? Will I write simply rows? Will I write simply columns? No. This will be very simple, I and j. You might be wondering, why am I not writing rows? Because hey, rows is the value, right? Rows is the number of values, number of rows, and columns is the number of columns. But how do I represent that? I and j. I and j is moving every single time. I is at the 0th row, j is going to move in terms of column. I is at the first row, j is going to move forward. I is at the second row, j is going to move forward, and then so on. So this is what it's going to do. So array of I, j is something we are going to expect. Now, as a part of the next step, what I can do is, after this gets over, I'll do a little cheat sheet here. So I'll say print ln or print, that's going to do fine. I'm going to give a quick next line, right? So what are all the values I'll be expecting here? Let's look at it. So in which format indeed I'm expecting the values. So let's say let's say this is something like this. Let's say we have the values 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. This is what the matrix looks like, right? So how will this be printed here? Well, it's very simple. This will be printed as follows: 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. It's just this simple, right? So system.out.print is going to print the very first values 1 2 3. Once it's printed, right, then it will come here, and then hey, it will say that go to the next line. So it goes to the next line. Now again it will print 4 5 6. That's printed. Then again it will say, hey, go to the next line. So it goes to the next line, and it will say that, okay, print 7 8 and 9. So 7 8 and 9 gets printed. This is how it's going to work. If you found the explanation useful, yeah, definitely please make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you.